Today's educators are in a situation where they're rethinking their face to face courses so that they can be delivered remotely. For some, this means trying to simulate what they'd normally do in the physical classroom, but in a virtual environment. Educational technologies can help with simulating classroom instructions and assessments. While many of the technologies we use for teaching have been around for some time, the current pandemic has encouraged many educators to start trying them out. Dr. Kevin Power, professor in the School of Human Kinetics and Recreation, is doing just that. Among other strategies, he's harnessing the power of video to help simulate the in-person experience and ultimately to try and make a positive impact on learners. Whether it's connecting with his class through video lectures, recording video instructions for students to help them understand a tool, or using video conferencing to schedule synchronous group work and cross-country journal clubs, Dr. Power feels that for him, some of these strategies may continue even after the pandemic is over.
I've been teaching at the university level since 1999, so that's 21 years of university level instruction. I started my first academic position though in 2010 in Oshawa at UOIT, which is now Ontario Tech. I taught there for a couple of years, and then I started at Memorial in Human Kinetics and Recreation in 2012. And so over the course of the 21 years, I've taught a lot of different courses at the undergraduate and graduate level. But I'll tell you about the ones I teach currently in HKR. So in the fall semester, I typically teach an online resistance training course, HKR 1001. Another course that I teach is a third year course in HKR. It's called Motor Control and Learning. And that's typically taken by physical education and kinesiology students. And that course has about 70 students, give or take. And it's kind of the traditional 3 lectures per week with a lab component. At the undergraduate level, I teach a survey course. It's HKR 2000. And it's an introduction to HKR, essentially. Typically in the winter semester, I have a graduate level neuroscience course, and that's taken by 7 or 8, master's students. And that's a combination of its different learning style than undergrad. So it's a combination of me giving your lecture, standard lectures. They have a midterm and a final, but they also give presentations. They teach the class on a topic or a topic of interest to them or some research techniques. And we also have some hands-on learning in the lab in terms of neurophysiology techniques. Probably one of the biggest things to get going for remote teaching was to figure out what can I use that has the tools that will let me do what I need to do. And so for me, like I said, with the graduate level course and only 7 or 8 students, I quickly learned that the video assignment section within Brightspace would be very easy to use for the students. Each student had 2 presentations left to give the class. So they hadn't done any of their presentations. And that's a big part of the graduate experience, is presenting your work, because if you ask any professor, if you want to know if you know something well, try and teach it. And so that's a big part of their learning. And so the first thing I did was, or one of the first things I did was I gave them the option, because not everybody is comfortable with this technology. It's the first time the students had used it. I essentially said you can do a live presentation to the class, or you can do a pre-recording and upload it to the platform, which I'll tell you about in a second, in Brightspace. And then students were asked to give anonymous feedback on their fellow students' presentations, as would be done in class anyway. And so all students opted for the recording and upload versus live. I wasn't surprised by that. And so I decided that what wasn't available, or what I didn't see, were video tutorials that exactly told the students what buttons to click on to get to the video assignment, how to do the video assignment, and how to upload it. And so what I decided to do was I was going to make a YouTube video. And to do that, I essentially learned how to go through the steps that the students would need to record the video and then upload it. And I did a screen capture of me doing that, with me talking them through it. And then I made some small edits and uploaded that as a YouTube video and just posted the YouTube video right in Brightspace. In terms of exercise physiology, I'm teaching this again with Dr. Dwayne Button. It's the first time I've taught the course in a few years now. And for that, there's a lab component. Now with exercise physiology, that's what we would call certainly one of the core courses. And so that's where you learn how to do, advanced cardiovascular assessments. So advanced fitness testing, for example, using, expensive machines and the sort. And so it's pretty hands-on in some senses. So we do what's called a VO2 max test, where we test someone's aerobic fitness levels. To do that, we use a machine that costs, $100,000. We only have one of those. So in this case, what we've decided is we have the lab instructor working to make video labs, essentially. So like I just talked about, a demonstration type lab, well, that's what we're going to try and replicate, what they would actually do in a lab. So the lab instructor is going to take in probably a friend or a fellow grad student and test the person and record it, walk the students through what's happening, and then provide an output, in their Brightspace for them to interpret and analyze. And so we're trying to develop that type of lab where they're actually video recording, showing them what's happening, and they're still tasked with understanding what's happening, though unfortunately they can't get the hands-on for some of the other labs. If I think of it from a personal standpoint, I value interactions with the students. In a sense, they keep you young because I keep getting older, but the students pretty much stay the same age. And so the interaction with young people consistently is refreshing, and I value that for myself. I just really enjoy that aspect, whether it's with undergrads fooling around and I'm telling my dad jokes or whatever, or a lot of students will come and look for advice about a course or a career path. And I really value that interaction because I've lived through making different decisions, from wanting to be a physiotherapist to wanting to be a professor to debating about trying to get into medicine. And so I value those interactions as well, or particularly with graduate students, which is typically a different conversation, a different relationship. I really value those interactions and the role as kind of a mentor that your job allows you to be. Myself and Dr. Button share a lab, and we have lab meetings, and they can be once or twice a month. It really depends on everybody's schedules and so on, but we have lab meetings, and they typically entail, what have you been doing lately? So we get an update from each of the trainees. And so there might be 10 or 12 graduate level students there, plus undergraduate students who are doing, honors research projects, or who are volunteering or just interested. And so we have these lab meetings. They also include data presentation. If a student has a research proposal coming up, they can practice it with the lab group. And so those are always done face to face. And when the pandemic hit, one of the first things we did was we used Zoom to get together just to say hello. There was no, what have you done in research lately? There was no update on your research. It was just myself and Dr. Button with a bunch of the trainees just having a chat. How are you doing? How are things going? And so that was one use. That was nice. But what really came from this with the research and journal club was, it's like this light bulb went off. It's like, oh, we can actually have speakers come join us from around the world, or we can join other labs around the world virtually to see what's happening. And so typically you only get to engage in that type of cross-lab, cross-country, cross-continent type of engagement about research at conferences. When the fall semester starts up, because the journal club now has been stopped for the rest of summer, when the journal club starts up, we intend on having professors or even trainees from those labs and other labs, or I have colleagues around the world, come present to us and let us join them to present our research. So to me, that is a huge benefit, to be able to engage in meaningful discussion with experts in the field outside of your 1 or 2 conferences per year, to be able to do it on a more regular basis. at a focused time point is really beneficial for research and for the trainees to learn and for us to learn as well.